Hi everybody, today I'll be demoing Vizru's Consolidated Reporting Framework. This framework is intended for brokers to use when performing a policy review with their client. Typically, creating these reports manually can take up to 2 to 8 hours to complete. Now with this framework, Vizru is able to reduce the time it takes to produce a consolidated report to under an hour. After the report is completed, it must go through a compliance review before it can be client-facing. Now these reports are important because up to 75% of the broker's new business comes from these policy review exercises. During the demo, we'll walk through the journey of creating a consolidated report from the agent's perspective, and then we'll switch over to the compliance view to audit our report. Let's start our journey with the agent logging in. This is their landing page, which shows all of the outstanding reports in various statuses. Now as an agent, I can quickly filter on the different statuses by choosing the respective filter. The reports in the draft status are reports that have been started but have not yet been submitted for an audit. Review changes required are reports that have started the audit process, but the auditor rejected it for some reason, and now the agent has to go back and fix it. The pending review status indicates reports that have been sent for an audit but are waiting for an auditor to start the process. So let's start the report creation process to see how we get started creating these reports. Clicking Create Report will take us to the kiosk where we'll step through the report creation process. Before we start creating a report, let's quickly take a look at a sample report that this framework produced. So this is the cover page indicating who the report is for. Then we have the table of contents. And just below, this is the policy inventory page, which depicts high-level policy information for our client, Lee Fabiano. Moving down, we come to the policy details page, which gives a high-level contrast between the original and current projections. Down in the policy benchmark page, we have a comparison of values from when the policy was bought versus the current in-force projection. The sub-account details page shows the client's allocations across their sub-accounts. The additional information page is reserved for the broker to customize. And the last two pages are the disclosures for the report and the appendix, which lists the illustrations used. So the first step here is to name my report and to choose a template. If we already have an existing draft we'd like to continue, then we can simply select Open Drafts and select a report to work on. For this demo, we'll go ahead and create a brand new report. So let's give our report a name, and let's choose a template. There are currently two templates this framework has, a simple and a complex report. The simple template is just a quick summary of the policy values for a given as of date, and the complex report is a comprehensive view into how the policy is performing today compared to its original projection. And what we saw at the beginning of the video was a sample complex report. So once we've named our report and selected a template, we'll go ahead and continue to the Add Policies page. Now this is the KYC process of this framework, where we can directly query the broker CRM to get the latest client information. Vizru can integrate with nearly any CRM out there with an API. So let's choose Sean Aston as our client, so we'll query for Aston. And let's say we wanted to run a report against his specific life policy. So we'll go ahead and click Add Policy, and now this policy is added into our shopping cart. So let's continue to review policy data. So in the review policy data page, we'll need to select the data sources for our report. For the complex template, we'll use the policy illustrations. So let's take a look at some sample illustrations. On the left-hand side, we have the initial policy details and projections from when the policy was purchased. This is called the as sold illustration. On the right-hand side, we have the in-force illustration, which shows the current policy details and projection for a given as of date. Now this framework will combine key data points from both documents to produce a consolidated report that compares the original and in-force values. There are various ways to get this information into the system, and as an agent, I can upload these two documents into the framework to be sent to OCR, or optical character recognition. The OCR will parse the content of these PDFs and then make them available automatically for the user. The OCR process can accommodate variants found between different illustration formats. For example, you'll notice the as sold illustration looks much different from the in-force as far as formatting. We've trained the OCR such that it can pick up on these differences and still give an accurate output. For our as sold illustration, let's go ahead and click Add As Sold Illustration, which brings up an illustration picker. Now the records you see here are the illustrations that have already been sent to OCR, but let's go ahead and select a file to upload. So while that's processing, let's go ahead and add our in-force illustration. Another common data source is from the carrier directly. So this framework is integrated with the insurance carriers to pull in the latest data on demand. The more policies you have in a report, the more time it'll take in the manual process to track down all this data. With an integration directly to the carrier, all that work is automated, saving the agent a substantial amount of time. So let's go ahead and click Carrier Connection and add this illustration. If I want to backtrack in the kiosk, I can use the breadcrumbs to navigate back and forth. And the agent can also upload supporting documents to substantiate any manual change they make in the edit report process next. Once OCR is completed, we'll go ahead and click Review and Edit. This is where the agent can come in and step through each page of their report to ensure accuracy. If there are any discrepancies in the report, the agent can edit the report values by hitting Edit. So any change made here is then flagged for the compliance officer to review. We can choose to omit or include pages in this report. Coming down to additional information, we can choose to omit or include this page in the report. So if we hit edit, we'll get a toggle to say to choose yes or no. We'll get a toggle to choose yes or no. So we'll get a toggle to choose yes or no. And if no selected, then this page will not be included in the report. So once the agent is satisfied with the content in the report, they can click Finish, which will then take them back to the kiosk. And once they're done, they can hit Generate Report. So before I generate the report, the system will remind me that I need to upload any substantiating documentation for the edits I made in the review and edit process. So let's go ahead and click yes. And the report generation process has been started. Once the report is done generating, we can view or download the report PDF. We can go back in the kiosk to remove or add policies. We can edit the report again, or we can submit it to compliance if all our work is done. Once we submit to compliance, the compliance officer will receive an email saying this report is ready for an audit. So as an agent, I can track the status of my report in the reports dashboard. So the reports dashboard holds all of the reports and various statuses. You can see the report that we just sent to compliance is now in the review pending status. So now let's switch over to the compliance officer role. As a compliance officer, they'll log in and land on their audit dashboard. The audit dashboard shows the outstanding work by auditor and each of the report statuses in a pie chart. Below, there are two grids, one called My Team's Work, which is a pool of reports that have not yet been picked up by a compliance officer. And below that, there's a grid called My Work, which lists all of the reports that I'm currently working on. So the report we just submitted will come under My Team's Work, which I can then select for an audit. This is the page where the auditor will reject or accept any manual changes that the agent made during the report editing process. In the exceptions grid, you'll see a list of data points that were either manually changed or left blank. The compliance officer will now go through the exceptions one by one, either accepting or rejecting the exception. Down below, we can take a look into the supporting documents if we need to substantiate an edit. Below the supporting documents, we have a grid called Comments, which is used to communicate back to the agent in case their report is rejected for any reason. The Audit Notes grid is where the compliance officer can put notes against the report, which cannot be viewed by the agent. Now, if the compliance officer rejects at least one exception, the agent will be notified and then must come back to edit or substantiate any rejected value. But let's say this particular report satisfies the compliance officer's needs, so I'll go ahead and accept each of the exceptions. Once Complete Audit is clicked, a number of things happen. First, the report is generated to remove the watermark. You'll notice in the beginning of the video, the report I showed had a watermark in it, indicating that it is not ready to be client-facing. After the watermark is removed, we'll then send the report and all of the supporting documentation to the broker's back-end document management system. Finally, the report status is updated to approved, and the agent will be notified that the report passed the compliance review. So let's hit Complete Audit and return to the agent view. Once the report is approved, the agent can now come and download the report. So we'll go ahead and download it. And as you can see, the watermark is now removed. So that's it for the demo, everybody. Thank you for watching.